Okay, so you know how everyone's always talking about shared values in relationships?
Yeah.
Like it's this magic ingredient for making things work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're diving into that today.
Right.
The shared values material you sent over,
Yeah.
it suggests it's a lot more complicated than just, liking the same movies or whatever.
Oh, definitely.
So this deep dive,
Yeah.
it's all about getting past those kind of surface level things
Right.
and really understanding how these values, like, they're the foundation of a strong connection,
Yeah.
you know?
It's so true.
Yeah.
And I think what gets tricky is that we often mistake shared interests for those deeper shared values.
Right.
Like you said, you might both love movies,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe one person is all about like the artistic cinematography and the other one just wants to escape, you know?
Totally.
It's those underlying motivations, those core beliefs
Okay.
about how life should be lived.
Yeah.
That's really what we're talking about here.
That makes me think of like those couples you see who seem perfect on paper.
It's like same hobbies, similar backgrounds, but something's just off.
Yes. Yes.
Could that be that values disconnect, you think?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think that's often exactly what it is.
Interesting.
Because, shared values, they're not just about keeping the peace.
Right.
They actually influence how you work through disagreements, how you support each other's growth, how you make big life decisions together.
So,
It's like having this shared internal compass
yeah.
that helps you navigate those inevitable bumps in the road.
Okay, so shared values is saying there's some major benefits here.
Yeah.
Better emotional connection, smoother conflict resolution,
Right.
and more stability in the long run.
For sure.
I mean, who wouldn't want that, right?
Exactly.
But I gotta admit, I'm still kind of wrapping my head around how that actually plays out day to day,
So let's take conflict resolution, for example.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of cognitive dissonance theory?
I'm not sure.
So it basically says that when our actions go against our beliefs.
It creates this inner discomfort.
Oh, I see.
So let's say you have a couple,
Yeah.
and one person really values open communication, and the other tends to avoid confrontation
Well, yeah.
when they disagree. The person who values talking things out
Yeah.
might get really thrown off by their partner's silence,
Wow.
even if no one's yelling or anything.
Right.
That misalignment can build resentment over time.
So shared values, they're not just about getting along.
Yeah.
They're about preventing those like deeper emotional cracks.
Exactly.
That's fascinating.
And that's where that emotional connection piece comes in.
Okay.
Shared values also mentions attachment theory, which looks at how early childhood experiences
Oh, yeah.
shape how comfortable we are with vulnerability and closeness.
Okay.
So if both partners have what's called secure attachment styles, meaning they feel safe expressing their needs, they're more likely to be open about their values from the start,
That makes sense.
which leads to more trust and intimacy.
So we're starting to see how these shared values, they actually have a real impact.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people listening are probably wondering, how do we even figure out what those deeper values are?
Right.
Like for ourselves and for a partner.
It's not like they have a values test on the first date.
Yeah, exactly.
Shared values stresses that honest self-reflection is the first step.
Okay.
Like asking yourself some hard questions.
Like what?
Like, what are your non-negotiables in a relationship?
Mm-hmm.
What are the principles that guide you even in everyday choices?
Okay.
It's about figuring out what really matters to you at your core.
That's where it gets really interesting to me.
It is.
That self-discovery part,
Yeah.
shared values, talks about using different tools and assessments for this. Is there one you find particularly helpful?
There are so many great resources out there.
Yeah.
And the best one depends on the person.
Okay.
What I personally find really effective is journaling.
Journal.
Yeah, like writing about times when I had to make a decision
Interesting.
and reflecting on what led me to that choice. And did it match the values I want to live by?
I like that.
It's a way to connect the dots between what I say I value and what I actually do.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
Thanks.
And it shows that self-reflection, it's not just a one-time thing.
No, it's ongoing for sure.
So let's say we've done that.
Okay.
We have a good understanding of our own values. How do we bring that into the relationship and start talking about it with our partner?
That's the next step.
Yeah.
And shared values suggest creating a space where you both feel safe and open to share. It's not about interrogating them or turning it into some kind of quiz.
Right.
It's about approaching the conversation with curiosity
I see.
and wanting to truly understand their perspective.
So it's less about, do we have the same values?
Right.
And more about, let's explore what these values mean to each of us.
Exactly.
That feels a lot less scary, honestly.
It should. And remember, it's not just one conversation.
Right.
It's this ongoing process of discovery.
Yeah.
Especially as you both grow and evolve as individuals.
That makes sense.
You know, shared values actually uses the analogy of tending a garden.
Okay.
Like you need to constantly nurture those shared values, weeding out any misalignments.
Wow, I love that.
And making space for new growth.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
But let's be real, those conversations can get a little difficult sometimes, right?
Sure.
What if you discover some pretty big differences?
Yeah.
Is every difference a deal breaker?
That's such a good question.
Yeah.
And shared values addresses that directly.
Okay.
It says flexibility and compromise are key.
Mhm.
Remember, you're two unique people.
Right.
So perfectly matching on every single value,
Yeah.
it's pretty unlikely, and that's okay.
Okay, that's reassuring.
Good.
But how do you know when a difference is like a red flag versus something you can work through?
Shared values suggests asking yourself, does this difference fundamentally challenge who I am at my core or my beliefs about how life should be lived?
Right.
If the answer is yes,
Yeah.
that might be a sign to dig deeper into those feelings, maybe even with a therapist or counselor.
I see.
But often differences can actually be opportunities for growth and understanding.
So it's about recognizing that being uncomfortable
Yeah.
doesn't automatically mean you're incompatible.
Right.
Sometimes it just means you need to stretch your perspective
Exactly.
and figure things out together.
Exactly.
I like that.
Good.
You know, and this reminds me of a sociological theory.
Oh, yeah.
It's called symbolic interactionism.
Right.
It highlights how we create shared meanings and symbols within our relationships.
That's so true.
Think about inside jokes, special traditions, even the way you talk to each other.
Yes.
These little things, they can become really powerful expressions of your shared values.
Absolutely.
It's like they're a shorthand for understanding each other.
Right.
A reminder of what connects you.
I love that.
I'm starting to see how it all fits together.
Me too.
The psychology, the sociology, the practical steps.
It all connects.
I'm curious, though.
Yeah.
How does keeping those values strong contribute to that long-term stability shared values talks about?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
There's a theory called social exchange theory,
Okay.
which says we tend to stay in relationships that give us more benefits than costs.
Interesting.
When you have that solid foundation of shared values, you're constantly getting those benefits.
I see.
You feel emotionally secure,
Okay.
supported in your growth,
Right.
aligned in your decision-making.
Yeah.
That makes the relationship feel more rewarding,
I see that.
even when you hit tough times.
So it's like
Yeah.
shared values are the currency of a strong relationship.
I like that.
The more you invest in them,
Yes.
the richer the relationship becomes.
Yes.
Shared values also mentions rituals and traditions. How do those play into this?
Rituals and traditions are powerful
Yeah.
because they're like tangible expressions of those values.
Okay.
Let's say a couple values community involvement. They might make it a tradition to volunteer at a soup kitchen together.
Oh, nice.
It's a way to put those values into action and create shared experiences that strengthen their connection.
So it's not just about having fun.
No.
It's actively reinforcing those deeper bonds.
Exactly.
And you know, something else shared values mentions.
Yeah.
It's that getting professional help can be really valuable.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially when those value differences feel more complicated.
Yeah.
Like a therapist can provide a safe space to figure things out.
Exactly.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I have a whole new way of looking at this.
That's great.
Before we wrap up, though, I want to
Yeah.
go back to something you said earlier about how values can change over time.
Right.
How do you keep that conversation going?
Yeah.
Especially as life throws you curveballs.
Well, shared values suggests making those values conversations a regular thing.
Like, what do you mean?
It doesn't have to be formal.
Okay.
It could be as simple as after you experience something together, asking what resonated with you most about that, or did that feel aligned with the life we want to build?
So weaving those check-ins into your everyday life
Exactly.
makes sense. Our values aren't fixed.
No, they change as we do.
Exactly.
And life does throw those curveballs.
For sure.
Career changes, family stuff, global events. Those are the times when revisiting your values can be really grounding.
Right.
It gives you a sense of stability and purpose.
Shared values also talks about
Yeah.
being mindful of how you express those values.
Yeah.
even in small ways.
It's true.
Can you talk more about that?
It goes back to that idea of symbolic interactionism. It's about those little everyday actions
Okay.
that show your values.
Give me an example.
So let's say a couple values quality time.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, we need to spend more time together,
Right.
they could have a tech-free Sunday brunch
Okay.
or plan a monthly date night.
I see.
It's about making those values real in your daily lives.
So it's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly.
It's those actions that really matter.
I agree.
You know, this whole deep dive has really changed how I think about shared values.
Oh, that's great to hear.
I used to think it was about finding someone who checked all the same boxes.
Yeah.
But now I see it as this dynamic process of understanding, compromising, and growing together.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And remember, it's okay to ask for help along the way.
Right.
Therapists, relationship coaches, even mentors.
Uh-huh.
They can all offer guidance.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
I'm glad you think so.
I feel like I have a whole new set of tools. Awesome.
For approaching this part of relationships.
I hope so.
Any final thoughts for our listeners?
You know, if I could leave them with one thing to think about, it would be this. Shared values aren't the destination, they're the compass.
Wow.
They guide you toward a meaningful relationship.
Yeah.
But it's the ongoing effort, the open communication, and the mutual respect that keep you moving forward together.
That's a powerful image.
Thanks.
And to everyone listening, remember the journey of understanding those shared values.
Yeah.
It's an adventure worth taking.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Of course.
Until next time, keep exploring those connections and keep talking.
Great advice. Shared values suggest creating a safe and open space for dialogue.
Right.
It's not about grilling your partner or turning it into a value-matching quiz.
Okay.
It's about approaching the conversation with curiosity and a genuine desire to understand their perspective.
So it's less about, do we match on these values?
And more about, let's explore what these values mean to each of us.
Exactly.
That feels way less intimidating, honestly.
It should be.
Right.
And remember, this isn't a one-time conversation.
Right.
It's an ongoing process of discovery.
Yeah.
Especially as you both grow and evolve individually.
Okay.
Shared values actually uses this analogy of tending a garden.
Oh.
You need to consistently nurture those shared values.
Okay.
Weeding out any misalignments and making space for new growth.
I love that analogy.
It's a good one.
But let's be real. Sometimes those conversations can get a little thorny, right?
Sure.
What if you uncover some significant differences?
Yeah.
Is every difference a relationship deal breaker?
That's a great question. And shared values addresses this directly.
Okay, good.
It emphasizes that flexibility and compromise are key.
Okay.
Remember, you're two unique individuals.
Right.
So perfect alignment on every single value is unlikely, and that's okay.
Okay, that's reassuring.
Good.
But how do you know when a difference is a red flag versus something you can work through?
Shared values suggests asking yourself, does this difference fundamentally challenge my sense of self or my core beliefs about how life should be lived?
Okay.
If the answer is yes, that's a signal to explore those feelings more deeply.
Okay.
Maybe with the help of a therapist or counselor.
Mm-hmm.
But often, differences can become opportunities for growth and understanding.
So it's about recognizing that discomfort doesn't always equal incompatibility.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's a sign that we need to stretch our perspectives
Right.
and find creative solutions together.
Precisely. And this is where that sociological theory of symbolic interactionism comes in.
Okay, remind me what that is again.
It highlights how we create shared meanings and symbols within relationships.
All right.
Think about inside jokes, special rituals, even the way you communicate with each other.
Uh-huh.
Those seemingly small things can become powerful expressions of your shared values.
So those symbols are like a shorthand for understanding each other,
Yeah,
a reminder of what binds you together.
I like that.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
Yeah.
The psychology, the sociology, the practical steps.
It all connects.
But I'm curious, how does maintaining those shared values contribute to the long-term stability that shared values talks about?
Well, think about social exchange theory.
Okay.
The idea that we stay in relationships that provide us with more benefits than costs.
That makes sense.
When you have that strong foundation of shared values,
Yeah.
you're constantly reinforcing those perceived benefits.
Okay.
You're more likely to feel emotionally secure, supported in your growth, and aligned in your decision-making.
Right.
That sense of reward makes the relationship feel more worthwhile even when challenges arise.
It's like shared values become the currency of a strong relationship.
I like that a lot.
The more you invest in nurturing those shared values, the richer the relationship becomes.
Exactly.
Shared values also talks about the importance of rituals and traditions.
Yeah, those are key.
How do those play into this?
Rituals and traditions are powerful because they provide tangible expressions of those shared values.
Okay.
Let's say a couple values community involvement. They might make it a tradition to volunteer together at a local soup kitchen every month.
All right.
It's a way to bring those values to life, creating shared experiences that strengthen their bond.
So those rituals aren't just about having fun.
No, not just fun.
They're actively reinforcing those deeper connections.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
And shared values reminds us that seeking professional guidance can be incredibly helpful.
Okay.
Especially when navigating those value differences that feel more complex.
When it's hard to talk about.
Exactly. A therapist can provide a safe and supportive space to explore those nuances and find constructive ways forward.
This has been so insightful.
I'm glad.
But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
That these values can evolve over time.
Right. They're not static.
How do you keep that conversation going, especially as life throws those inevitable curveballs your way?
Well, shared values suggests, making those values conversations like a regular part of your relationship check-ins.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be this formal sit-down every week.
Yeah.
It could be as simple as, after you do something together, just asking like, hey, what really stood out to you about that? Or did that feel like, the kind of life we're trying to build?
So it's about like weaving those little check-ins into your everyday moments.
Exactly.
Which makes sense because our values, they're not set in stone.
No, they change as we do.
They totally do.
Life throws those curveballs, right?
Sure.
Career changes, family dynamics, even like global events.
Right.
All that stuff can really shake things up.
It does.
And those are the times when going back to those shared values, it can be really grounding. It gives you that sense of like stability and purpose.
Shared values also talks about being mindful of how you express those values.
Yes.
Even in small ways.
It's true.
Can you explain that a bit more?
Sure. It goes back to that idea of symbolic interactionism we were talking about.
Yeah.
It's all about those little everyday actions that reinforce your values.
Okay. Like what?
So let's say a couple values quality time.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, like, we need more time together.
Right.
They could, make a rule about no phones during Sunday brunch.
Oh, I like that.
Or plan a monthly date night.
Yeah, that's good.
It's about, taking those values and making them real in your daily life.
So actions speak louder than words, basically.
Exactly.
This whole deep dive, it's really changed how I think about shared values.
Oh, that's great to hear.
I used to think it was about finding someone who checked all the same boxes on some list.
Yeah, I think a lot of people start there.
But now I get it.
Yeah.
It's more about this ongoing process of understanding, compromising, growing together.
I love that.
And remembering that it's okay to ask for help.
Absolutely.
Therapists, relationship coaches, mentors.
So many great resources.
I think we forget that sometimes.
We do.
This has been such a great conversation.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I feel like I have a whole new set of tools
I hope so.
for navigating this part of relationships.
Awesome.
Before we go, is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with?
If I could just offer one last thought,
Okay.
it would be this. Shared values aren't the destination. They're more like a compass.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
They point you in the right direction.
Exactly.
Towards a relationship that's really meaningful.
Right.
But it's the constant effort, the open communication, the mutual respect.
Yeah.
Those are the things that keep you moving forward together.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And to everyone listening, remember that journey of figuring out and nurturing your shared values. Right. It's an adventure worth having.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring those connections and keep those conversations going.
Great